All right, welcome to this special edition of We the People, America in Black and White. I'm LG Hamilton. Today we have author David Roberts, author of Preparing for the Coming Collapse of the U.S. Dollar. David, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
We had David on here about, I'm going to say, a year and a half or 2 years ago, right after this book came out, if some of you remember. We interviewed him on some basics of preparing, but today it's probably more relevant than ever, especially with the Hurricane Sandy going on the East Coast. Anyway, I wanted to have you back on the show. You've updated your book, Preparing for the Coming Collapse of the U.S. Dollar, and over the last year and a half or 2 years, I've followed you, and you have offered more to people on how to actually practically prepare for what can happen after a collapse. Not just that your finances are in order, but with medicines and being able to feed yourself and clothe yourself and motor oil and all, just amazing things in this book. Can you get us started on some things that you have learned the last year and a half on your page?
Well, I am not a professional prepper, and I was not before I started the book. So getting together a community of people who have been doing this for years has really taught me a lot. As far as food preparation, you need to have at minimum a 3-month supply of food and water in your house. I always started with the assumption that food storage is half of the solution, and that's because it doesn't matter if you have 3 months, 6 months, or a year, eventually you run out.
Right, yes.
So what you need to do is you need to have a 3-month supply of food, not so you can, rest on your bottom and be able to safely eat for 3 months, but so that during that 3-month period of time, you can be planting a garden of tomatoes and potatoes, lettuce and cabbage. It takes 90 days to harvest a tomato plant, supposedly from seed to actually generating fruit on it. If you can raise, if you're in a situation you can raise chickens or ducks or rabbits or fish, it usually takes 90 days to get them anywhere near the size from, hatching to being able to eat them. Tilapia is the fastest. But it's things like this. You need something that's going to continue to generate food, or assets that throw off food, as I put it in the book. Or you're just going to run out of food, and it'll be later than everybody else, but you'll still be out of food. One of the things that I started with in helping people to be able to afford to do this is tell them they don't need a lot of money. I love listening to the Glenn Beck show and everything, but when I checked out that food insurance, it is expensive. And getting freeze-dried this and dehydrated that, you'll go broke and you'll only have enough food for a month. But if you go to Sam's, BJ's, or Costco, any one of those houses there, you can get a 50-pound bag of rice anywhere from $12 to $15 in a emergency situation. If you count 1 cup of rice as a serving, you're looking at about 30 days of food for 2 people with a 50-pound bag of rice. So for $15, you can have a month's worth of rice, add another $15 and get a couple of 10-pound bags of beans, black-eyed peas, something with a protein in it, and you can essentially have 3 months' supply of food, albeit not the tastiest of food, but you could have that amount of food for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you have. And it's important to have that, because if you don't, then you're going to be wandering around the stores looking at empty shelves.
We see, David, a lot of people think the idea of empty shelves in a grocery store is impossible to happen in America. But if you look right now on the East Coast, just on the shelves of Walmarts, because of the word of Sandy headed their way, those shelves were already empty, and we're not even talking about an economic collapse here. We're talking about just a hurricane hitting the East Coast and how people at the last minute are trying to run and scrape and prepare. So empty shelves in a grocery store is not only a possibility, but a reality. Another thing that can happen in those situations is when businesses find themselves without even product to sell, or product to continue to run their business, just the financial hit that they're going to take from that is enough to put a lot of mom and pops out of business. So the idea of not recovering from a quick hurricane or any sort of national event is a reality. There's people living it today.
Exactly, and people are going through it right now in Greece. They went through it in Bosnia about a decade ago, and they went through it in Argentina during the 90s, during their collapse. And some of the stories that come out of there of what was a typical nation with, technology and cars and stuff, and how it turned almost into a third world overnight, are absolutely incredible. I mean, people are trading food for cigarette lighters, things of that nature that they can't get shipped to them. One of the first things that went during the crisis in Argentina was the tap water, because the people that were working at the plants that filter, send it out, treat, do all this stuff to tap water, were in the same boat as everybody else, and they weren't getting paid. So they didn't bother to go to work. So when they don't bother to go to work, the water that's coming through those lines is not filtered, not treated, and potentially hazardous to your health. So in a situation in America, for people to close their eyes and pretend that everything will be okay no matter how bad it is, it's not going to be.
You just mentioned how an event like a hurricane or an economic collapse will cause dominoes to fall. We want to be short-sighted and think, oh, it's only the grocery stores that might not have food. But, there's the real possibility of we won't be able to go get our money out of banks. And even like you just said, people not getting paid to go to work are going to stop going to work. And as they stop going to work, the dominoes fall one at a time, and every aspect of the economy closes down. So things we take for granted today, like turning on our light switch or turning on the sink or flushing the toilet, they're all out the door when people stop getting paid because of an economic collapse. And we're looking right into the eyes of that today, and so many people are just void of the reality that we face right now. To me, this hurricane on the East Coast should be a wake-up call to what we face in reality.
It should be. Unfortunately, it's not, because with most hurricanes, they're over within a day. And then you get people starting to go back and rebuild within 3 days. But when you've got a situation where, for example, one of the things that I learned when I was writing the book is about power grid. The power grid, or the companies that are providing your power in your neighborhood, have enough coal, if it's a coal-fired plant, to last about 8 days.
Wow.
Once the coal stops shipping, it's over. And the cold start is something, a power station, in order to provide power to other people, needs to have some kind of power source to kick the power station into gear. If there is no power because it's a grid down situation, a cold start is a lot harder than they would like for you to know. As soon as the coal stops shipping, we've got maybe a week's worth of power before the grid goes down.
Well, and so probably before the week's even up, they've rationed what little we do have.
Exactly.
You mentioned just a minute ago trading a cigarette lighter for food. Give us some basics in that respect, not necessarily things we need to have around to eat or to get by while we plant our garden, but the idea of having certain commodities that we can trade for other commodities. What's valuable in that respect?
Well, if you use the example of Kosovo, the Bosnia area, which went through 20 months, is still going through some problems, but about a decade ago, their economy collapsed. So pretty much anything that we just take for granted now, like lighters to light charcoal or socks, things of that nature became almost luxury items because nothing is getting shipped in. Things that you think of right now as being just, oh, well, I can run to the Dollar Tree or, Big Lots and I can get a pack of them. They're not going to be available. So if I had to break it down into the top three things, I would have lighters. I would have some kind of waterproof matches as well. I would have Band-Aids, any kind of medical bandages, anything, the iodine-type stuff or the stuff that you put on cuts, because one of the main sources of major health problems during this time was simple cuts that just became infected because they didn't have access to antibiotics and any of those Neosporin-type sprays that they did before. I do believe that this is highly important too, and I hadn't got to it yet, is medications. If anyone is taking medications in order to survive, remember that I'm sure this is illegal somewhere. Go to another doctor and only get as many pills for as number of days you want to live after the collapse.
I mean, how do people prepare for something like that? Can you get more medication than you need, or is that already an issue? Can you go out of the country to get it? I mean, I'm not going to encourage someone to break the law, but obviously we need to be prepared to live after a collapse.
Right. If it's a situation like diabetes or something that you have to take medication or you're going to die, there are several pharmacies that you can call or you can drive to in Mexico or Canada and get those prescriptions. This is the first part, actually, of the Last Domino book. It's now in the Preparing book. There's phone numbers of 50 pharmacies in Canada and Mexico that you can call to see if they can ship you a 90-day, 180-day supply, because the laws there are a lot more lax than they are here about how many you can get in a given refill period of time. There's a number of ways that I put on there in the book how to get additional medication. Some of them are a little unorthodox, but you'll get the medication. And like I said, if it's a life and death situation, one little FDA law is not going to matter a whole lot to you.
Yeah, absolutely. David, tell us the names of the books again, and they are available on Amazon.com. Is that right?
Yes, they are. They're available on Amazon.com. I would prefer people get the ebook because it's only $3.
Okay.
It's called Preparing for the Coming Collapse of the U.S. Dollar. I did put it in print, but I have no control over the price in print, and it's like $20.99. So if they wait until December, if we have until December, okay, I'll be putting it out on Amazon for 5 days, the second week of December, for free, so that everybody can get a copy and just be ready for what's coming.
Awesome. And go ahead and give us the name of your Facebook page and your blog so we can direct people to those places.
The Facebook page is, again, if they search for Preparing for the Coming Collapse of the U.S. Dollar, they'll find the Facebook page. The blog, I don't have a specific address for that. If they just Google God in Country Christian Ministries and then Preparing, then they'll find that page. And there's several months' worth of entries that I put in on instructional things, humorous things, things to do to be prepared, and that's actually also included in the second edition of the Preparing book, too, is all of the blog entries that I put in.
Excellent. If we make it through December, I want to have you back also to talk about the dual citizenship book. That's going to be a great interview that we can get to, hopefully, if we make it through December. I'm LG Hamilton with We the People, America in Black and White. This has been David Roberts, Preparing for the Coming Collapse of the U.S. Dollar. Please share this video with your friends, y'all. This is important this week. Get out and vote. We've got to get Obama out of office. See you next time.
We the people.